Hello, everyone, and welcome. So I thought I'd make a video for you guys, giving you some tips for the research paper. Hopefully, it'll help you avoid errors and thus avoid losing points. Remember that your research paper is due this Friday, December the 4th. All right? Okay, so let's get started. So here are some tips for your research paper. These are things that I've noticed in student essays where students lose points rather unnecessarily because they're really the basics. Believe it or not, sometimes the basics are the toughest things to do that we forget to do, and just a silly way of losing points. So I hope this really helps you not lose points in a silly way. All right, so the first thing is keep in mind the title of your paper. You know that the title needs to be centered. Do not underline or italicize or use bold letters in the title of your essay, all right? Do not. Please give your essay a title that is engaging, interesting, and informative. Please do not title your essay Free College. That's not engaging, interesting, or informative. What are you saying about free college? Or what are you saying about college tuition? Make sure that your title gives your reader an idea of what your essay is about. Yes, it is about free college, but are you for it, against it? Is it a good thing, a bad thing? Provide some of that information in the title. Make it informative. The second thing, make sure that your essay has the 3 parts that every essay needs to have. Each part needs to be developed into at least 1 paragraph, right? So make sure that your essay has an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, right? Each one needs to be a paragraph, including the conclusion. The conclusion needs to be a paragraph all by itself. And make sure that in the introduction, you have a clearly stated argument or thesis statement where you state your position and provide an explanation or rationale for it. So let's say that I'm writing about free college tuition and I am in favor of it. So I would have to say something like, free college tuition is beneficial because, right? So add because, or free college tuition is the way forward because. Add the because, explain, provide a rationale. All right, remember to develop your paragraphs thoroughly by providing examples and providing explanations and really fleshing out all of your ideas, developing all of your ideas. Remember that each paragraph needs to be at the very least 7 sentences, so that I'm trying to get you to explain, things. Please also remember to cite your sources, and that means that you need to engage with them by using quotes, by paraphrasing and summarizing, right? Synthesis, remember, we engage with the sources by engaging in synthesis and quoting, summarizing, and paraphrasing. When you're using quotes, which you are required to use, remember to embed each one using the sandwich method. So remember to introduce your quote using a signal phrase and an active verb, as you have in here. The active verb in this case would be argues. You can use other verbs, explains, points out, etc. And then you need the quote. Remember to use quotation marks around the quote. And then also to provide parenthetical documentation. The parenthetical documentation goes at the end of the sentence and after the quote, and also before the final period, always. Remember that you only need 1 final period per sentence. So if the quote ends with a period, you don't need to have 2 periods, only the one after the parenthetical documentation. And of course, after you provide the quote, you need to explain it, right? That's why a paragraph should never end with a quote. If your paragraph ends with a quote, that means that the explanation is missing. And if your paragraph starts with a quote, then that means that the introduction or the setup is missing. Right? So always sandwich your quotes. A little bit more on parenthetical documentation. Remember that within the parenthetical documentation, you need the last name of the author and the page number, unless you already have the last name of the author in the lead-in. If you already have the last name of the author in the lead-in, as you do here, you do not need to repeat it in the parentheses. So just avoid repetition, that's all. But if the last name of the author is not here in the lead-in, then you actually need it right in the parenthetical documentation. Notice that you do not need an abbreviation for page. You do not need a comma over here. None of that. Just the last name of the author, the page number, and the last or the final period of the sentence after the parenthetical documentation. Okay? I'll post this also on this week's module, so you have it there. What else? When you are using a PDF or consulting a document that is in the shape of a PDF file, please use the page numbers of the document itself, not the page numbers of the PDF file. And I'll show you later on what I mean by that. All right. So I'll also post all of this on this week's module so you can go over it. Again, here it's explaining if the author's last name is not in the lead-in, then you need it in the parentheses. If it's already in the lead-in, you don't have to repeat it. All right, watch out for duplicate leading examples. And that often happens when students use two lead-ins in the same sentence, which you don't need. So look at this example over here. According to the article, trigger warnings to label or not to label by James Catherine states. So we have two lead-ins here. We have according to, and then we have James Catherine states. So this is redundant. You don't need to do this. Actually, when you use a lead-in, you don't have to provide the title of the article, just the name of the author. Because articles don't say anything, articles don't argue, articles are not human. People say things, people argue. So the right way to do this would be to say James Catherine states, etc., etc., etc. Another error over here, you do not need the abbreviation for page, just the page number. Okay. Another error over here is that the student placed a quotation mark here, but they didn't close the quotation marks. So make sure that you look for the little details because all of these things will cost you points, okay? And as I said, don't include the title of an article in the lead-in. You don't need that. Just the name of the author. Give credit to the person, to the human. Articles don't say anything or state or argue. They're not human. The people do. All right. When you're embedding quotes, make sure that you keep an eye out for fused sentences. Sometimes students kind of put in a quote and continue with another sentence right after the quote. Make sure that you place those periods where they need to go, one idea per sentence. And watch out for floating or standalone quotes. And those are quotes that don't have a lead-in. So make sure that you always sandwich your quotes with a lead-in. All right. When it comes to the works cited page, the name of the page is works cited, not citations or references. It's works cited. And remember that the title needs to be centered. Do not italicize it, do not underline it, no bold letters, nothing. Another thing to keep in mind is that the works cited page always goes on a separate page. Always. It goes on its own individual separate page. It doesn't matter if you typed only one word on page 3, the works cited page goes on page 4. Always on a separate page. When you're preparing your citations, be careful. Don't just go ahead and copy paste the citations that the databases provide because they often have errors and mistakes. You need to check. You need to check for correct use of quotation marks, correct use of italics, correct use of capital letters. Make sure that the citation provides inclusive page numbers. So that means that you have to provide the number of the page where the article starts and the number of the page where the article ends. That's inclusive page numbers. So not just where the article starts, right? And it needs to provide the date of access. And actually this one, it's all you. You have to type in the date when you accessed the article. Also make sure that you alphabetize citations, that you place them in alphabetical order. Make sure that you use hanging indent. Make sure that you double space your citations. And make sure that they're all on Times New Roman, font Times New Roman size 12. Because Word tends to default to Calibri. So be very aware of that. You can lose points if they're not in the right font. All right. So make sure that you cite your sources. As you see, these sources are alphabetized: B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, etc., alphabetized. Make sure that they're double spaced. Make sure that you're using hanging indent. This citation is only one line, so that one is okay. But this citation over here consists of 2 lines, and you have to indent the second line. This citation consists of 2 lines, you have to indent the second line, and so on and so forth. When you cite use parenthetical documentation, make sure that the information in the parenthetical documentation matches the first bit of information in the citation. All right, so this article was written by 2 authors, Burkhardt and Will Morris. So you notice that they use Burkhardt and Morris. And if you go to the works cited page, you're supposed to find Burkhardt quickly because that's the first author, and it's right here. The same with the second source that you have. This one was written by Richard Crown. This is a online article. It's not paginated. So obviously, if it's not paginated, you don't have to make up page numbers. So they're using just the last name of the author, and it's really easy to use to find Crown in the works cited page. When you have an article that is written by 3 or more people, you can just use the last name and the name of the first author, followed by the abbreviation et al. And that lets your reader know that there are more than 3 authors. Obviously, you don't want to have, some articles are written by 4 authors, 5 authors, or 5 people. You don't want to have like a whole list of names in your citation. So if it's written by 3 or more, then just use the abbreviation et al. And you can use just that in the lead-in and in the parenthetical documentation of quotes if you're using it. It's rare, but some articles or sources don't have an author. This is also, this one doesn't have an author because it's probably written by the staff at UNESCO. So if it doesn't have an author, then in the parenthetical documentation, just use the title or a shortened version of the title of the source. It's unlikely that you'll be running into this case for your paper because I'm asking you to use scholarly sources and to find them using databases, and these are almost always authored. And last but not least, please check your paper. Please read your paper before you turn it in. Edit and proofread your work. Look out for comma splices, few sentences, fragments, subject-verb agreement errors, apostrophe errors, semicolon errors, which are very common, and typos, right? Make sure that you use quotation marks correctly. As a rule of thumb, if you're not quoting, don't use quotation marks. That's pretty much the rule of thumb for quotation marks. They're called quotation marks for a reason. So keep in mind, the basics of grammar that we've been working on throughout the semester. Okay, the next thing I wanted to show you is a sample paper, right? So that you have an idea of what your paper needs to, or how your paper needs to look. So make sure that you have your heading, your name and last name, course, professor's name and date. Make sure that you have a running header, make sure that it's in black ink, Times New Roman size 12, check that. And that the page numbers are correct, because I find a lot of errors regarding page numbers, and sometimes students forget to insert their last name, so they lose points. So make sure that that is correct. So just checking, quiz 2, quiz 3, we're good. Make sure that you have a title, that your title is informative. You do not need an extra space or a gap between your title and the first paragraph. So actually, this is incorrect. You don't need to have that gap in there or that space. Just everything evenly double spaced. Make sure that you have an introduction and that you have your thesis statement in the introduction. This paper has notes. You don't need to have notes in your paper, so forget about the notes or the footnotes. So just make sure that your paper is thoroughly proofread and edited, and that you have quotes. As you see here in this paper, I do have some quotes, that you engage with your sources. All right, so I'm going to keep on scrolling until the end, till we get to the works cited page. Notice that on page 5, I still have some space left. That doesn't matter. The works cited page needs to go on a separate page. Notice the running header. Notice the title of the page is works cited and it's centered. These are my citations. They are alphabetized, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They're alphabetized. Notice that I'm using hanging indent. Notice that I have, actually there's a tiny, there you go, error in there regarding capital letters, just caught that. The title of the article within quotation marks, the title or the name of the journal within italics, the volume and number of the journal, when it was published, inclusive page numbers, the name of the database in italics. Remember, it's not EBSCOhost. If you're using Academic Search Complete, it's Academic Search Complete, not EBSCOhost. You can provide the permalink or the DOI. I chose to provide the DOI in here, and the date when it was accessed. And it's the same pattern for my next citation. This citation is a different sort of source, so you don't have to worry about that one. You guys are going to be following this format or this template. If you want to find the template, you can just go to the Valencia Library webpage. I'll go ahead and post this also on this week's module, and you can follow the template. You also have it in your book. I think it's page 555 or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But nevertheless, you need the last name of the author, comma, first name of the author, if they have an initial included, period, the title of the article within quotation marks, the name of the journal in italics, comma, volume, period, volume issue, comma, number, number of the issue, comma, date of publication, abbreviation for pages, inclusive page numbers, name of the database in italics. You can include the permalink or the DOI, that's okay, and then the date when you accessed the article. All right, so I'm going to show you what students do, which is exactly what should not be done. All right, so let's suppose that I'm focusing on community college. And I'm talking about free community college tuition, or free, what do they call it, 2-year college education. So what students usually do is go to site. I hope it takes me to. What's going on? All right, so something's going on here. Pardon me. Academic Search Complete, so maybe it's that. Sorry about this. Are you gonna let me? No. Okay. is the one I had over here. The reality now. The reality of free community college tuition. I'm sorry about this, guys. Here we go. Okay, here we go. That's the one I had over there. Let's see if it lets me. Yeah, okay, good. So you have to look up MLA format. So let's just look up MLA. All right, so students usually go like this. And then they go like this. And then they look up their next source. What's the next one? Free community college and merit scholarships. Okay, so let's suppose that this is the next one that I'm using. And then they go like this. And they look up MLA. And then they go like this. And then they go to their third one, if they have a third source. Let's say that we have a third, is free tuition working. And they go like this. It's free, just free tuition working. Oops. And they leave it like that. And this is actually wrong. First of all, you need to get rid of the shadowing. So let's go to home and get rid of the format. And you're thinking, oh my God, nothing to worry about. Times New Roman, size 12. And then we go to paragraph. And then you go to double space. All right, and this one needs to be centered. Centered. All right. Something is not working in here. Nope. Double. All right. All right. This is actually looking better, but it's not completely right. We need to have hanging indents. How do you do that? Super easy. Go to home, paragraph, hanging. Perfect. Looks better. But then I need to look out for something here, and that is alphabetical order. These citations are not alphabetized. The letter B goes before the letter C. So I need to, let's see if this works. Okay. All right, so now they're alphabetized. Good. Then I need to go in and check if every detail is there as it should be. Last name of author, name of author. This one has 2 authors. Capital letters are okay over here, and quotation marks. This is the name of the journal, so it needs to be italicized. Volume, number. This is a little strange. Volume 2017. Free Community College and Merit Scholarships. Volume, well, it appears it's volume 2017, issue 180. Okay. A little weird, but okay. Winter 2017, inclusive page numbers. Sometimes you'll see that citations do this kind of deal over here. And that is actually incorrect. You need the inclusive page numbers. So there it is. And we need to italicize that again, no problem. The name of the database is not EBSCOhost, it's Academic Search Complete, and it needs to be italicized. Then you have the DOI, and you need the date of access. What day is it today? 30 November 2020. All right, so that's better. Now you know that this is correct. And you need to do the same thing for all of the rest of the citations. Sometimes, for some reason, like databases italicize the whole title of the article. You don't need to, capitalize the whole title. You don't need to do that. You know the basic rules of capitalization in the English language. So check the capital letters. The name of the journal needs to be italicized. Number. This one doesn't have a volume. That's okay. Inclusive page numbers. You need over here academic search complete and the date accessed. All right. So make sure that you check your citations and that you alphabetize them, use hanging indent, and that the works cited is completely on a separate page. All right. I'm going to also post this template. You have it in your book as well, but I'll post it in this week's module. And I'm going to also post a sample paper so that you have like indications of what to do on your paper, running header, the heading, the title, and when you go to the works cited page, it also gives you pointers. It always begins, as I was telling you, begins always on a new page. The title needs to be centered. It's works cited, not references or citations. Okay. All right, guys. So this is it. These are the pointers that I wanted to give you. Please make sure that you proofread your paper. And I do have office hours coming up this Wednesday from 10 in the morning to noon. So if you have any questions, you can always pop in to my office hours, or alternatively, you can also send me an email. And I'm here to help you guys. All right. So that's all from me. Have a great day. See you later.